Shalom, good Shabbos. Are you kidding? I love Jello molds. No, are you? Look, nobody should make fun of that. Nobody should make fun of you for that. In our family, that's a big deal. My father is going to be here next week. He loves. Yeah, my great aunt Shirley, who I adored, who unfortunately passed away, she made the best of them in our family. But it was a big part of things. Oh yeah. The the only thing that I occasionally made fun of was the what was referred to as ambrosia salad. Ambrosia salad. Does that sound familiar to you? Yeah. So that was the only thing that I could never quite figure out, but I know in its day was a very popular thing. Right. I think a lot of delicious things from what I gather. Right. I mean that's. No, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'll tell you just as a quick funny story. So when my grandmother passed away, we were going through and she had cookbooks of various kinds and stuff like that, and so we were all kind of taking things, and we came across what I thought was the best title of a book. So you can imagine something called the Quality Jewish Cookbook, but this was the Quantity Jewish Cookbook, and its entire idea was for sisterhoods basically to create massive amounts of food for like kiddish lunch, and it was hysterical. It was a tome, but it was really just it cracked us all up, and she was very effective at making a lot of food for a lot of people. So, oh, how was it? Not so good. Yeah, even Lauder himself said it's sort of hit or miss. Some of them are better than others. But when Neil and I were at the launch event where they had the like little bit to eat, there were a couple things that were really delicious. And I'm not like a meatball. Look up the meatball recipe. That was really good. Whatever that one was. But noodle kugel didn't pass, huh? All right. Look. I wouldn't debate that. I would never think to debate that. So now that we're back in doing candle lighting, would anybody like to do candle lighting tonight? Anybody? Ellen? Good. Good. Okay, good. So Ellen, you'll do it this time. Linda, you can do it next time. You get, I don't know. There's a certain part of me as the rabbi that enjoys the idea that people are fighting over lighting candles, but you're overly gracious to each other, which is a lovely thing. So it was very nice last night, right? It was just this room also at like that hour filled with people had a very nice. No, I'll call you up. You just relax. You get together, even better idea. That's good. Howie, good to see you. No, no, I know. It was it's a longer conversation as to why we couldn't stream, but one of the things was, for aesthetic reasons, they didn't really want to have these big towering things up here. So I think there are issues in here are a combination of things. The mics that are built in, those ones you see like right over there, there's a black mic that's coming. Yeah, this one over here. So these are their mics. It's no, no, no. It's hard. It's what I've learned about all this stuff in my time learning about audio tech things that I do nothing about is it's a factor of like a million different things. So it can be the speakers, it can be the mic, it can be the room, it can be the person mixing things. It's like 700 different possible reasons why it sounds the way that it does. But the one thing I would say is that every week since I've had the opportunity of doing this and having feedback for it, I'm constantly like fine tuning things little bit. But yeah, it's tough, and the placement of their speakers are sort of underneath the speakers for this room are located underneath the overhangs and all the way in the far corner. Again, I assume for aesthetic reasons, but in terms of the way that sound operates, it's the worst possible place for it because it just basically bounces that way, but it doesn't come here in the same way that these things do. So, I know that was tough. I couldn't tell from being up here. I could hear a little bit, but I could hear there were certain places in which people. I was just going to say that's what because for the first year we were here, we were using their mics, and I was making fine adjustments and all that stuff, and no matter what I did, and then I spent almost an entire year thinking I was insane because in my ear I could hear me speaking here, and then when Lauren would start singing, then I wouldn't be able to hear my voice. And it turns out that it's not accident. I'm not crazy. That there's just something in the way that they have it set up where only one mic can work at a time. And so when I explained that to them, like in our service, we're constantly singing together. It doesn't work that way. And that's when I realized we had to use our stuff. So it's a little bit of extra work, but that's it. Anyway, good Shabbos to everyone. Shabbat Shalom. And this really lovely treat to begin our service. Ellen and Linda, we're deep in conversation right now. Linda, Ellen, would you be willing to come up and help us light and bless Shabbat Can? Okay, good. Didn't mean to interrupt. It seemed like a good conversation going on. Page 120. They're figuring out the world's problems, I'm sure. You need help with the lighting first? You guys want to come over here and just do the blessing? I'll do the lighting piece. You guys want to do this one? Give it a shot. Yeah, let's not burn the church. That's the only thing we cannot be forgiven for. Blessing's right over there next to the mic if you'd like. Here we go. We'll make it easy.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. All right. Thank you, guys. That's good. I always love being able to take the mic out here. I feel like this is my one moment to be a Baptist preacher. I can walk around a little bit. But then I remember I'm Jewish, and I put it back in the mic stand. So, good Shabbos, everyone. We're going to get started with our service on page 130. Page 130, very top of the page. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu nekadma fanav betodah. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. We're now on page 131, Shiru Ladonai, just where the Hebrew begins in the middle of the page. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato, Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato. We'll turn now to page 132, or Zaru at the very bottom of the page in Hebrew. Or Zaru ala tzadik, ulehishrei lev simcha. Or Zaru ala tzadik, ulehishrei lev simcha. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. We're now on page 134, the very top of the page. Zamru ladonai bechinohor, bechinohor bekol zimra, בחצוצרות וקול שופר. הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושביו. נהרות ימחאו כף יחד, הרים ירננו. לפני אדוני קיווה, לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק, והמים במישרים. ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושביו. נהרות ימחאו כף יחד, הרים ירננו. We're now on page 135, Romemu, the last Hebrew paragraph, towards the middle of the page. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. We'll turn now to page 136, very top of the page, and page 136. מזמור לדוד, הבו לאדוני בני אלים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש. כל אדוני על המים, אל הכבוד הרים, אדוני על מים רבים, אדוני על מים רבים. כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, ויקידם כמו עגל לבנון וסריון, כמו בן רעים, כמו בן רעים. כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יחולל איילות. ויחשוף יערות, ובכלו כולו מכבוד, כולו מכבוד, כולו מכבוד. אדוני למה בו ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלom. We'll turn now to page 138, L'chadodi, beginning at the very top of the page. Reminder, we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs, and for the ninth, we'll rise and face towards the rear of the room. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. 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 שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Okay, please be seated. We're now on page 140, 140, just in the Hebrew where it indents towards the middle of the page. Tzaddik ata mar yifrach, keres bavanon iske shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun beseva deshenim verananim yihu lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo ahavlatabo. We'll now rise in body or spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144. Yitkadal vehitkadash shemei Rabbah, Ve'alma divrach chirutei be'amlich malchutei v'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'galaha ba'galaha ubizman kariv veimeru Amen. Yeheshme Rabba Mevarach Le'alam li'al me'al maya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitvar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shemei dechudsha brichu Leila min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata tamiran be'alma v'yimeru. Amen. You remain standing for the Baruch Hu on page 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vahed. Please be seated. We'll turn to page 148 and read together in English at the bottom of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Umahavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzvahot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai, Amahari barabim. Let's turn now to page 151. We'll read together in English at the bottom of the page. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Ki ehem chayenu ve'orech yameinu v'ahem nege yomam v'layla v'avatcha al tesir mimenu li'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Please join me on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. For a little bit of a change, let's read together on page 155 in English. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children, talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. We join together from Michamocha on page 158. Ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye bye bim bam, ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye bye bim bam, ya bye ba 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 ba, ya bye bye bim bam, ya bye ba 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 ba, ya bye bye bim bam. Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh. Norat hilot osefele, Norat hilot osefele, Yabai by bim bim bam, Yabai by bim bam, Yabai by bim bim bam, Yabai by bim bam, Yabai ba 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 ba, Yabai by bim bam, Yabai ba 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 ba, Yabai by bim bam. Malchutecha rahu vanecha bokeam lifnei Moshe Miriam zeli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed v'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov ugolo miad chazak mimenu Baruch ata Adonai Gal Yisrael. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu, the top of page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu Shomreinu lechaim, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu Shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeteinu, uvoeinu, Lechaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. We turn to page 162, Vishamru at the very top of the page. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. עיני ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. וביום השביעי שבת שבת ויהי נפש. I invite us now to rise in body or in spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164. From that point on, we'll continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace, and if at the end you're standing, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftach upi agit tehilatecha Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We'll turn now to page 371 as we prepare to offer our Mishaberach this evening, our healing prayer. Tonight we are thinking in our community of Carol Yavana, Benti Tepper, Allison Luckman, Malka Bat Chaya Sura, Michael Klinghoffer, Amy Cass, Steve Levine, Rivka Bat Rachel, Leah Bat Naomi, Gedalia Ben Sylvia, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sivya Deborah Bat Francis, Muriel Hirsch, Michelle Sawicki, Francis Kirschman, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Spicer, Barbara Kushner, David Kyle Klotman, Lorraine Davis, Talia Pomeroy, Michoel Ben Chananya, Devorah Batsima, Rebecca, Lila Snyder, Jeffrey Miller, Shelley Lyman, Deborah Block-Kroll, Sylvia Orn, Stanley Rappaport, Karen Layton, Harold Goldban, Celia Paul, and Steve Rosen. In addition to the names that we just shared, we'll invite those with us in the room to add additional names. Of course, invite those at home to add names as well, either in the Zoom chat or just to say the names of your loved ones out loud. For those that are with us here tonight, we'll start on this side of the room and work towards the back and this side of the room, and just raise a hand if you're adding. We'll join together on the bottom of page, or the middle of page 371. Mi shebeirach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi shebeirachimotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. All right, good Shabbos, everyone. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. First, just a very quick word unrelated to what we're going to talk about tonight. So the interfaith service last night, which I know was on bummer, we couldn't stream it for reasons we can't get into, but for those that were able to be here, it was really a wonderful thing and an example again of how strong this community is, and I use that in the biggest possible terms. And it's apropos of our conversation tonight, and our conversation tonight is focused on something that we in our community here, amongst the community of people, really dedicated people, who have worked in advance of and since they have arrived to help this remarkable family who have come to us from the Ukraine, we are helping to house and to feed and to sustain in order to give them the possibility of their own life to begin anew. This all comes from the same kind of idea, and I thought last night, especially hearing all these different faith traditions, very different in a lot of very key and core ways, and yet the same thing that kept kind of coming up over and over again was this understanding that at its core, at its essence, our various religions are really focused on the best of ourselves. And the best of ourselves means just not looking out only for ourselves, but for others. So before I welcome our co-president, Ron Klausner, who's going to give us an update on how things have been going so far and where we can help in addition, because this is not a one-off scenario by any means. This is really a commitment of our community. I wanted to just situate our conversation and Ron's conversation with us in a few minutes in some core text. One that's going to be familiar, or should be familiar to all of us, and one perhaps a little bit less that builds off of the idea. So we learn in Leviticus in chapter 19. This is the section of Leviticus that is Parshat Kedoshim. It's one of the most important sections of the entire Torah, and it establishes in numerous places this idea that we are a people whose intention is to be quote-unquote Kodesh, to be holy, because that ultimately is what God is. And some of the ways in which we do that is to act out, in particular, when the ger, as we are told, the stranger, the person who is no longer living in the place in which they were born and has been forced to leave their home for one reason or the other, and how we relate to them and how we think of them and how we treat them is at the very core of our identity as Jews. So it says as follows: when a stranger, a ger, resides within your land, you shall not wrong them first. A stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. That is a second point. And you shall love them as you love yourself. Why? For you were strangers at one point in the land of Egypt. I am Adonai your God. So if this doesn't sound familiar to you, we need some Judaism 101 lessons around here for sure. This part should be familiar. But I want to bring one small piece of Talmud to take us to a next part of the conversation. Okay, we know this idea is that we're supposed to, again, not wrong them, allow them to reside where we are, to take care of them, to love them as ourselves. But what does that actually mean, and how do we actually go about it? So the rabbis of the Talmud get into a discussion about one very specific element of refugees, which are called the cities of refuge. The cities of refuge were constructed actually as sort of a place in which when people commit crimes of some sort and they want to not incur a blood guilt and start a whole back and forth vendetta, there would be these places where people, these are unintentional killings, for example, could go and to reside. But eventually they became cities of refuge in a much larger sense. They became a place basically for anybody who was displaced for one reason or the other from where they could live. So the Torah is very clear in the need to establish such cities. What we learn when that actually happens, there are additional requirements set out by the sages of the Talmud. And they say as follows: with regard to these cities of refuge, one does not establish them in small settlements or in large cities. Rather, one establishes them in intermediate-sized towns. We'll hold that for a second. And one establishes them only in a place where water is available. And if there is no water available there, as there is no spring accessible from the city, one must bring them water by digging a canal. Okay? So if it's not accessible water, you can't just drop them off with a jerry can You need to literally dig a canal for them to have access to water. And one establishes them only in a place where there are markets, and one establishes them only in a populated place where there are many people who regularly frequent the town. And if the population of the surrounding areas diminishes, one adds to it. In other words, one moves population in order to accommodate. And if the number of residents of the city of refuge itself diminishes, one brings new residents to the city, amongst them priests, Levites, and amongst the people of Israel. So why do I bring this text, and why is it so important? One could easily imagine fulfilling the obligation as it's laid out in Leviticus in very simple terms. Most of these terms are actually somewhat passive, other than the more enigmatic phrase of loving them as yourselves. For the most part, what the Torah tells us is that we're meant to not treat them poorly, we're meant to not kick them out, but the idea that we have to go to such degree to consider not just getting them to a safe place, but to a place in which they actually can thrive. And that, I think, is an important kind of distinction, and one that I think needs to be understood within its timeline and its context, to be a rather radical position in which it is being put forward for the first time by our tradition. And I think we have to really understand it. We tend to look at it today and think of it in modern-day terms, but in the days in which the Torah is really coming to existence, the earliest point in time, there is no other contemporaneous peoples that takes this approach to strangers. It usually takes the exact opposite approach, which is build a wall and point things at them and tell them to go away. And here our God tells us that one of the key ways in which we can act out our being Kodesh is by doing the exact opposite. And not only doing the bare minimum, but going the next step and the next step and the next step, again, to make sure that it's not just life, but it really is living a life. And I think these are really important things for us to consider, and now it's my privilege to welcome up our co-president, Ron, who's going to tell us a little bit about what's been going on beyond what we may already know, and to tell us again how we can make sure that it's not just our bare minimum, but where we can really bring ourselves into it. So, Ron, let's bring you up to the bima, and let's make sure, as you are a taller gentleman, that we have adjusted accordingly, and that everybody can hear you okay. How's that feel to you?
Okay, feels good.
Good?
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
You need anything else?
Shabbat Shalom. As I mentioned in my email last week, a handful of our congregants formed a welcome circle with the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, otherwise known as HIAS, and welcomed a Ukrainian family to our community under the Uniting for Ukraine program. The family consists of a mother, her 2 sons, and their family pets, a dog and a cat. They will be allowed to legally stay here in the United States for up to 2 years. The members of the Welcome Circle consist of my wife, Andrea Klausner, Howie and Sherry Lippman, James Dwoskin, Jane Rifkin, Ellen Ruby, Vivian Shapiro, Rivelyn Zweig, and myself. So far, the Welcome Circle has prepared and filed documents with the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service to get the family approved to come to the United States. After our government approved the filings, the Welcome Circle arranged and paid for their transportation from Frankfurt, Germany to Sag Harbor, provided them with food, clothing, and medical care, registered the children for school, secured Medicaid benefits, coordinated interpreters, introduced them to Sag Harbor and the food pantry, and so much more. The most important task we now face is getting them work permits and Social Security benefits for food stamps and public assistance. To date, our community's response to the family's arrival has been overwhelming. I think about it. The family has been given free pizza, pajamas, children's clothes, and haircuts by local merchants. A local pediatrician has donated her medical services. The pharmacy has provided medicine at a very low cost. Even a local sanitation company has given the family a discount. As I said in my earlier email, it takes a village, and the businesses in Sag Harbor have certainly been responding. The schools in the village have also been amazing in their efforts to welcome the family and ease their adjustment to school in America. The school administration has spent many days working with the children to find the most appropriate placement for them and allocated extra teachers to assist them. I never knew this about the school, but it's such a warm and welcoming place. The boys started school this week. As you probably know, thanks to a generous donor, the family is now living in a fully furnished house in the village until spring. They can easily walk to town, school, shopping, the beach, the library, and the food pantry. We are looking into housing after May 1st, and if you have any suggestions or leads, please let me know. After the family moves out of their present residence, the end of April, to a rental apartment, they're going to need furniture, sheets, dishes, pots, pans, and everything else to furnish an apartment. I will put out a call for donations of these items at a later date, so be prepared. The family is currently recovering from the traumas of war and an arduous 2,000-mile sorry, I just think about that trip. 2,000-mile trip by bus and rail from eastern Ukraine to Frankfurt, followed by a frightening flight to JFK. They had never been on an airplane before and were literally scared to death. When they thought about planes, they only thought about bombs dropping from them. The most important task we have at the moment is to help the family recover from the trauma they experienced. Every time the noon siren goes off in Sag Harbor, they shake with fear. What a way to live. Every time an emergency vehicle goes by their home, they're scared. They call us. I know everyone would love to come and meet with them, but not yet. Hopefully they'll feel more secure, comfortable, and rested in a month or so. Meanwhile, access to the family is really being limited to the Welcome Circle members who've been screened by a security firm, vetted by HIAS, and trained. But what you can do now to help the family is to continue to send donations so we may support their basic needs. So many of you have generously contributed. They came with only 2 carry-on suitcases, 2 guitars, and their pets. They escaped from the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine on 20 minutes' notice. Just imagine somebody telling you right now to go pack up, we're leaving in 20 minutes to go to the moon, and you don't know if you'll ever return. If you've already made a donation, on behalf of the Welcome Circle, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have not yet made a donation, I ask why not? No amount is too small or too large. As a Jew, you know that if you help save just one life, you save the world. Here is your opportunity. Here's your opportunity to save the world. Tax-deductible checks may be made out to Temple Adas Israel, Ukraine, P.O. Box 1378, Sag Harbor, New York, or donations may be made on the Temple website. We even created a new link on the homepage. Just note on it, Ukraine Relief. Please feel free to come up to me after services with any questions you may have. If you are streaming this service, please feel free to email or call me at your convenience. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Ron, for those very inspiring words and those great updates, and a lot more to come, I am sure. So we're going to turn back to our prayer books now, to our Sidurim, to page 586. I'll invite us to rise in body or spirit, Aleinu L'Shabech. Again, page 586. Aleinu L'Shabech Ladon HaKol, Latet Gedula Leotze Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoye HaRatzot, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. We'll turn to page 593 and we'll read together at the very top of the page. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tear dims our vision, our grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love we are comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. This evening, I will invite those who are in mourning and those observing yahrzeit to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated. This evening, we are thinking of Martin Blake, Lynn Cowan, Faith Diskin, Arlene Eber, Jay Fagan, Ellen Frank, Chaim Bear Greenwald, Mark Joseph, Jane Beard Cass, Gertrude Katz, Buddy Kossoff, Helene Krotman, Emmanuel Kiprios, Leo Leibowitz, David Lieberman, Sandra Luongo, Norma Paulsek, Lillian Schwartz, David Senf, Anita Sheldon, Alan Silver, Sandy Slip, Larry Wartor, Peter Weinstein, Rita Weitzman, Matthew Adam Zimmerman, and Yael Zurdar. We also mark the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Jerome Alpern, Abraham Blasenheim, Florence Braz, Oscar Brill, Annie Chiat, Wilfred Cohen, Deborah de Rothschild, Nathaniel Dror, Herbert Fabricant, Carol Goldblatt, Esther Greenberg, Pincus Grossman, Fanny Halpern, Peggy Caton, Morris Kelman, Rollin Graham Mason, Jack Raich, Elias Riss, Irving Saltzman, William Scavron, Teresa Spitz, Harry Tiemann, Hy Weinberg, Samuel White, and Hannah Zuckerman. In addition to the names that we just read aloud, is there anyone else saying Kaddish for anyone we did not mention? And we'll invite those, of course, at home who are in mourning to mention the names of their loved ones, and we'll invite those, if there's a custom, to rise as the mourners join with me on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agalau b'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekusha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And Ron, thank you so much for your beautiful words, very beautiful and inspiring words just before. A few important announcements in addition to everything that Ron had just mentioned. Again, just a reminder, if you'd like to know more or get more involved, definitely a good point of contact would be Ron, either by email or other means. If you have any other trouble, contact me, certainly, or contact the office. In addition to that, thinking about Shabbat services tomorrow, 9:30 here at the Old Whalers Church in the chapel. So again, if you're joining us in person, to just enter through the side of the building. And if not, then you can join us on Zoom, on our website, YouTube, or Facebook channels. And a reminder, of course, to join us for Torah study at 12 o'clock on Zoom as well. Also, a reminder that this Sunday at 2 o'clock, the Women's Rosh Chodesh group is meeting. Yes? Yes, okay. On Monday this week, Nida Mitzvah is meeting 11:30 still. Good. Also, my class on Heschel and the Prophets will be meeting on Zoom at 12 o'clock. Hebrew School is at 3:30, and 5 o'clock Social Justice Committee, Zoom meeting as well. Reminder, of course, that there is no Hebrew School this Wednesday, and the offices, of course, will be closed on Thanksgiving. And I want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving, however you may be celebrating, wherever you may be celebrating. And again, thinking about our experience last night in this wonderful community that we are part of, a lot of things to be grateful for. But one of the things that I expressed is my gratitude for this community of the Old Whalers Church for welcoming us in the way that they have and sustaining us and all of the things that we've done. Certainly we'll thank them in other ways and in other times, but last night it felt particularly important to say it then. So I extended that gratitude on behalf of the whole congregation. Also, a reminder, just a few things coming up. So my Friday class is not meeting next Friday because of the Thanksgiving holiday, but we will have, of course, Shabbat services at 6 o'clock, and, of course, the next morning as well. And I haven't quite worked this out yet. Cantor Kevin will be away, and my dad is visiting with my mother for the weekend, so I think I'm going to lampoon him into being my chazan for the weekend. So if you like hearing Geffen sing together, this is probably a good opportunity next Shabbat if you're in the area, or if you're online, you can join us that way as well. Reminder, coming up on Thursday, December 1st at 7 o'clock is our next virtual Science and Religion in Sag Harbor series, this time in a conversation with Leah Oppenheimer, our Hebrew School Director Emeritus, and the conversation will be focused really on the constantly shifting sands of parenting, both from a scientific perspective, from a Jewish perspective, and from Leah's experience as an educator as well. So a little bit of everything to be discussed. Again, that's Thursday, December 1st. A number of other things, including Hanukkah coming up in December, good things to come. Did I forget anything? Any building-related updates I should be sharing? Whoa, walls. Walls are important. We all are big fans of walls. So that's very exciting. That's very, very exciting news. One more step. And as Ron, thank you. That's why I asked. Really great response to our launch of the civil rights trip to the South that is coming up this spring. Already have, I think, 14 and then likely probably 15 or 16 already signed up. We have to get to that magic number of 20, so we still need a few more signups. We only have until December 15th to really get it together, though. So if you're on the fence, you're unsure about anything, contact either the Social Justice Committee directly, contact me. I'd be happy to talk with you about it. Really is a great experience, a great opportunity. And if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, please find me after the service. I'll be happy to tell you exactly what's going on. So that's it, at least for now, and I certainly wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. So in a moment, we'll do Kiddush, we'll do Motzi. Again, a reminder to all of our friends who are with us in the room, if you could just please bring your prayer books back to Josie on your way out, that would be wonderful. And to close our service tonight, something we actually don't do very often on Friday nights. We almost always only do it on Saturday mornings. But it's a great piyut, a great piece of medieval poetry that is on page 625. Should be pretty familiar to all of us, but Adon Olam, Adon Olam. And you know, it's one of these prayers that we have that is sort of all-encompassing. It's a great demonstration of at least what classic Jewish theology is really made from. But it's also musically one of the great things because there are so many different melodies. It's almost impossible to find something that won't work with it. So long as it matches up in beat, you can put almost any piece of music to it. But we'll stick with the classics because that's what we know for tonight. Again, page 625. Adon Olam asher malach beterem kol yetzir nivra leit nasa bechefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hoveh והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד בין שנים, להמשיל לו להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו, הפקיד רוחי, ותישן והעירה, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי, velo ira. We'll rise now for Kiddush on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'horei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lemase v'reishit ki hu yahom techila lemikrae kodesh Zecher litziat Mitzrayim, ki vahanu vacharta, veotanu kidashta, mikol hamim, beshabat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim to you. L'chaim to you. Again, thank you to Josie who pre-opens this for me so I don't have to fumble. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Inevitably, I always talk with my mouth full. It's not good. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos to all. And to all a good night. And to all a good